people are coming out about the condition. And it is a condition. For some, it becomes a lifelong medical condition. For others, it's a day and a half of sadness, and which we all get. So I think no, and not I think, I'm glad that the conversation is becoming more open and that people aren't ashamed of the condition, because it's real. It happens to all of us. And unfortunately, it is growing. For me, I kept everything to myself. And it was to the point where I felt my family didn't always want to hear the bad things about Dad, what was going on, how I was feeling. Good morning, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. No, I wasn't. I wasn't fine at all. You can always have depression, that can be a condition that's part of you, but you can also overcome that by knowing and doing things that are good for you. And that's a different story for everybody. It really is.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today our topic is living with depression. Depression is heavy. It's one of those things that we struggle to talk about. And in some families, you're just supposed to, get over it. Take a pill if you have to, but don't inconvenience anyone else. So depression gets hidden, and it could be passed on from generation to generation. Just another one of those skeletons in the closet. Luckily, all that is starting to change. Thanks to mental health campaigns and the honesty of celebrities like Adele, J.K. Rowling, Kristen Bell, and Jim Carrey, depression is coming out of the closet. And we here at Your Brilliance want to be part of that. That's why we invited Roger Renik onto the show. Roger is a man who's courageously chosen to speak out about his battle with depression and OCD. As a member of Chicago's Free Speakers Bureau, he talks to groups about his 40-year rehearsal. It's taken him 40 years to learn how to have the kind of conversation about depression that he's about to share with us. He writes, it's the personal story that people want to talk about, but don't always know how to begin the conversation. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you, Amy. I'm glad to be here.
So I want to start out with a really big question. How do you think the conversation around depression needs to change?
I think over time, and as you had already noted, more people are coming out about the condition, and it is a condition. For some, it becomes a lifelong medical condition. For others, it's a day and a half of sadness, and which we all get. So I think I'm glad that the conversation is becoming more open and that people aren't ashamed of the condition, because it's real. It happens to all of us. And unfortunately, it is growing.
So what do you think then that people get wrong about depression? Like, one of the things you pointed out immediately that I noticed is everybody gets it. It's not just for those few special people who, maybe are too sensitive or too weak or too emotional. It's something that we all get.
Exactly. And just to give you an idea, when I call the subject the 40-year rehearsal, I was around 22 when I realized that a lot of things in life bothered me, maybe more so than others. So if you do the math, you can probably figure out how old I am. But it's a subject that people again, just don't seem to always want to talk about. I think everybody has their conditions wherever there's moments of sadness. But for some people, including myself, there are long streams of events that happen in life that carry on, and you don't get it acknowledged, or you don't get it recognized that there is something more than just sadness occurring. And that's when the condition sets in, and that's when most people should get professional help afterwards.
So I want to then ask a question. Can depression occur regardless of what's happening in your life? You talked about there was a series of events. And so then we may assume, do people with hard lives get depression more? Does someone with an easy life not supposed to get depression?
It depends on the situation. And Amy, you could have 20 people, 100 people in a room talking about the subject, and you're going to have 100 different responses depending on the people. For myself, and this wasn't particularly noted in our initial conversation, a lot of this involves the care of my mom for many years. I was a caregiver, an adult caregiver. I have an older brother that was in the same role as me. And my dad passed away at an early age, actually in 1982. So as my mom got older over the course of many, many, many years, I became more of a caregiver for her. But in addition to that, I was also working evenings in a rather stressful position. At the time, I had two young children, had just been married. So there was a whole series of events that were occurring in my life. And as my mom became more dependent on others, this could be a whole topic in itself. But as my mom became more dependent, my being stretched in many, many, many different areas was becoming more a part of my life. And this occurred over the period of around 7 years, which was a long time. I didn't talk to a lot of people about the situation, except my brother. And ironically, that's what got me into therapy, was the fact that you can talk to others, and it's a wonderful communication tool, is just opening up your mouth, sharing your ideas, and relating to somebody else that may be going through the situation that you are. So again, for myself, the caregiving role was that was a very big turning point in my life. Although I've always been very sensitive to things, and that goes back to when I was, in my early years. Very sensitive to situations, and took things very seriously, maybe more seriously than I should have sometimes. But relating back to the caregiving experience, that's what brought me to the point of when I realized I really needed some help after my mom's passing.
Yeah, and I think that what you described is so relatable. We are all overstretched, and
Yeah.
there's a belief that we should be able to do it. We should soldier on, we should buck up and keep on going because everybody needs us. But sometimes we've actually overdone it. And
Yeah.
so you're talking about for you, therapy help. Like, there's a lot of different alternatives for people. There's, medication, exercise, and diet. What do
Right.
you think for you was the best way to address what you were feeling?
What happened, Amy? And there was a turning point. Again, I am a male of the species. I don't talk. I keep everything inside. But yet, going back to the caregiving role, as I said, when I was with my brother, him and me would sit for hours just talking. And what we were doing was we were supporting each other. For me, I kept everything to myself, and it was to the point where I felt my family didn't always want to hear the bad things about Dad, what was going on, how I was feeling. Good morning, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. No, I wasn't. I wasn't fine at all, and I needed to talk. And there was a breaking point in my life where I just carried this on for a year or so after I said my mom's passing, yet the condition remained within me. And to be honest, I had a total breakdown. And that's when I was told, and my wife told me all along, I think you need to talk to somebody.
Mhm.
It took a breakdown for me to finally say, yeah, I do. So I went to therapy. I was in professional therapy for about 5 years. But I was also at the point where the therapist thought I needed a little additional. So I
Mhm.
went to a psychiatrist who then prescribed medication. And for me at that time, yes, that's what I needed. And I needed to get things put back in together. And again, I went for the psychiatrist for many years. Eventually, by my pushing, if you will, I came off of medication because I decided that I would like, it's easy to say, I would like to do this without the need for medication. And I did. I was on medication for about 6 years. And I decided that in my life, I wanted to go another route, to do this without the aid of medication, continue therapy. And then by my choice, decided to give therapy up, medication up, and to let's see how I can do this, how I can handle this. And fortunately for me, I mean, there's still issues and there's still concerns, and I think that's for me and that's for everybody who goes through something like this. But I also learned a lot about myself that I never thought I knew, that there is a power within me and within people where you can recognize something that's good and positive and try to build that as the new foundation for your old life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I was very fortunate in that, it's not the end of the story, and the story will continue forever. I mean, it's not a beginning and an ending. It's managing. It's how you manage yourself and manage your life. So I think in back to the original question, for me, everything was important. The therapy, the medication for a time, and the ability to be able to open up and to talk to other people, including my family, and not to be so introverted any longer. And through the course of time, you will find those moments that, I feel good about this, or I feel better about this. Self-esteem is an incredible, incredible tool. And people going with depression don't see a lot of that.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that there's no quick fix. This is a commitment. This is almost
Yeah.
a full lifestyle change. I believe so much in therapy because, as much as talking with family is great and you had your brother to talk to, there is a huge difference between talking to somebody who's that close to you, personally invested, versus a therapist who is 100% on your side, but actually has a more objective view of your life and can kind of nudge
Right.
you to seeing things different. So it's going to take a long time. But one of the things I want to pull out from what you said is you learned something from depression. You learned that there was a higher power. You learned a lot from your experience. That's not what we think of. When we think of depression, we don't think of it as a
Right.
teacher. How
Right.
has depression been your teacher?
I've learned that it is going to sound perhaps silly, but I'm a good person. I have a lot of good things. Yeah, in all the readings that I've done on the subject, one of the things that I saw and read that were just interesting was that if there was no fear, if there was no fear in the world, depression would not exist. Now, this is one person's thought, but I thought about that and I said, there's truth to that. There's truth to that. And people who think that there's nothing to look forward to, there's nothing in my life that is good, it's so hard to look at that person and say, you're wrong. There is something good. I don't know what that is. And I don't know that you know what that is right now. But for all you can do for yourself, carry on. So easy to say, but so difficult to do. And I know. Go through your life. Don't be that person. And there's a vision that I have in my mind, and I get a little weepy. That person sitting in a corner, just in a corner, just like this, and all by themselves. And that's how I was. I had people around me who wanted to help, but yet they didn't understand what I was going through. Somebody can come up to you and say, I know how you feel. I know what you mean. It's okay. You'll get over it. That's not going to work. That's not going to work because unless, and I mean this as far as family and spouses, family is supportive, but yet they don't understand what you're going through. And I believe it takes that person who has gone through or is going through to say, no, I don't know how you feel, but I can support you. And then you have to fill in the blank. What does that mean? What does that mean to somebody else? So I've learned to identify things that I was that I suddenly, wow, I can do this or I can do that. And I felt good about that. Again, going back to self-esteem. When you're in that situation, you're not a good person. You can do nothing good. Nothing is good. But yet, if you carry on the best that you can, you're going to pinpoint little things that are going to come out and say, ooh, that was a good thing, or that was maybe this wasn't as bad as I thought. And those are the life lessons that I talked about that totally changed my life and gave me a different view on things. And yeah, I'm a good person. Not always. Nobody is. Yeah. But I think when you can pick those little moments out, I think that builds the new foundation on which you can grow a new life. You can always have depression, that can be a condition that's part of you, but you can also overcome that by knowing and doing things that are good for you. And that's a different story for everybody. It really is.
That's fantastic. I want to go back to what you were talking about family, because so many families don't know how to deal with it. Some families think it's shameful. And even though they don't maybe mean to, they shame you. They're like, why can't you get over this? They don't want to hear you wake up in the morning and say, how are you today? Oh, not great. How are you today? Oh, not great. How are you? They want to hear, how are you today? I'm fine. I'm wonderful. They actually want to hear you're doing great. Maybe it's because they feel partially guilty. I don't know. So how can families support loved ones with depression?
Yeah, I think the telltale signs for me, it was withdrawal. I mentioned earlier, I at the time, going back here, my kids were little. I think just with seeing the withdrawal, seeing the lack of interest, and just having that downer attitude, for lack of a better way to put it. As much as family, I think, a family member, and I mentioned this earlier, a family member that comes up to you and regardless of who it is and says, it's okay, it's going to get better. That's good. That's showing the support. But for some, I think taking somebody literally by the hand and directing them to professional help, if that's necessary, telling somebody that, no, I have no idea what you're going through, but I know you're going through something. Let's find out what that is. Let's figure this out. And no, I don't have to do that. No, I'm fine. Now I'm going to be fine again. Well, don't give up, because, and you also, and realistically, you also have to have the individual who's suffering suddenly get through that moment that, yeah, I do need help. I do need some support. And Amy, that's a challenging role in itself. It doesn't just simply say, you know what, you're right, let's go fix this, But I think being interested, don't turn your back on the individual. As hard as it is to go up to somebody and say, hey, everything is fine, and doing this 10 times a day when the person is, sitting in a corner crying or just totally withdrawn, don't give up on them, because they're looking for help, but yet they don't know how to find it either. So you have to be a good caregiver, if you will, supporter of the person.
Now, for those of you watching, if you want to learn more about the work Roger does, talking to groups and bringing awareness to these issues, we've got a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Roger Renik. That's yourbrilliance.org/Roger Renik. Roger, thank you for coming on to the show and helping us have this conversation. And I want to know, do you have any last message that you would like to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, well, we referenced earlier about all the people that are coming out with depression. It's a good thing that it's not a shame. It took me, as we already noted, many years to come out and say, I'm not doing well. I'm not feeling well. Something is wrong. I think anybody who's suffering or anybody who goes through the situation has something to look forward to, but yet you don't know what that is right now. Everybody is good and everybody has good in them. And if you can find that and work on that, and to seek help. And to seek help. It is a condition that you can live with. It is a condition that you can carry on your life with. You just have to you have to like yourself better than you do.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you, Roger. And thank you out there for listening. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.